Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. Four people died in traffic accidents last year. The majority were New Providence and Grand Bahama, and we appear to be on the same course to surpass that, with 7 fatalities alone in the past 12 days, but the Family Island numbers trending higher this time. As if from the Hollywood blockbusters Fast and Furious, our streets have become a danger zone for motorists and pedestrians. There is a real and present danger in the common practice of texting and driving, which continues to have disastrous and deadly results. Our streets present daily threats. Question is, what are we going to do about it? Tonight, we look at road safety. Don't lose your life to gain a minute. Our guests are Assistant Commissioner Ken Strawn of the Royal Bahamas Police Force Traffic Division in charge of operational support, Ross Smith, he's the controller of the Road Traffic Department, and Chief Superintendent Craig Stubbs, officer in charge of the Royal Bahamas Police Force Traffic Division. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
Every time I'm in the Bahamas, I use Rev Go Play.
Cut. Got that food. It's packing. Here he comes.
Yo.
Wait, Omar coming.
Boy, this Rev Go Play, solid.
Rev, you and us together.
At any given moment, we can get news of yet another traffic fatality on our streets. Nowadays, it seems that's a very commonplace. Tonight, we're looking at road safety. Don't lose your life to gain a minute. In studio, my guests are Assistant Commissioner Ken Strawn, Chief Superintendent Craig Stubbs, and Mr. Ross Smith, who's the Controller of Road Traffic. Gentlemen, welcome to On the Record. Thank you so much for coming. I have to admit to you that this show was the idea of my producer, but I was very happy to do it. It has been a long time coming, I think, for myself as well as for the general public. I want to begin, though, by talking about really how are we qualifying folks to be on the road. I drive around quite a bit, and to me it seems either we don't know or we don't care to know what our traffic laws are and the rules of the road. I'm going to start, of course, Mr. Smith, by talking to you about giving people an idea of the process, how one becomes or should become licensed to drive.
Well, there's a process in place at the Road Traffic Department where persons have to take an examination. That is what we call a theory exam. It is now online in that persons no longer write the exam. They do it on the computer. And once they pass the exam, then they're given what we call the learner's permit. That's the permit to learn to drive. And they go out with somebody. A number of them have had experiences before, as you know, with their parents driving around, but they get the official status from us. And once they have completed a series of lessons, then they come to the Road Traffic Department, apply for the practical exam. And once they have been successful at that level, then they're given outright driving a driver's license.
So you can get your permit by just going online and filling out or answering the theoretical part? Is that how?
No, you don't just go online. You come to the road traffic
Oh, you have to
department.
sit in front of someone
Yeah.
there. Okay, I thought you just had to go in front of something. Are you satisfied though that the vetting process for persons to receive, for people to receive their driver's license, is as it should be, and that people are being sufficiently taught and scrutinized and even tested in order to become licensed?
I think one of the things we need to do is to look at regulating driving schools. That's extremely important.
Because you do need X amount of driving school hours, correct?
Right.
In order to take the test.
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, we don't regulate how many lessons they do, but we have draft legislation that we are looking at to send forth so that these issues can be spelled out, and that we have a better means of ensuring that the persons we put on the road are competent.
Are these driving schools vetted at all, or can I just show up and say, hey, I have a driving school, I'm teaching people how to drive?
I can't say that they were not vetted. I don't think we had standards prior, and so we're trying to ensure that there are standards in place to address that.
You could have some rogue folks out there who just in it for the business.
Right.
All right, so gentlemen, now that I am licensed and I am on the road, I become your responsibility in terms of policing. What would you say are some of the major issues or the most common issues you face with drivers on a day-to-day basis, the major infractions and things that we simply either get wrong or willingly disobey?
I will start and say one of the primary cause what we see every day in most drivers is driving without due care and attention. New-time drivers, first-time drivers.
But that's pretty broad when you say due care and attention, eh?
First-time drivers don't adhere to what we call street markings, more specifically the traffic light, red light, and more importantly, once they are reported for these offenses, then we see where a person say, well, after they just would have been 3-4 months or within 6 months obtain a driver's license. So it is an issue when we see it every day on the streets of New Providence, the distracted driver that don't care and attention driving, just driving carelessly.
Do you find that these are new drivers, or this is a common problem with all drivers? I mean, I know people who've been driving for years who run the light.
We can go to we are being modernized every day with new technology, and one of our concern that the cell phone use, and that has surpassed in road deaths and traffic accident, that cell phone use has surpassed driving under the influence of alcohol. So it is a concern for us. So you find that not just the younger drivers, you find all persons now you see on a daily basis that are commuting the streets of New Providence are engaged in cell phone use, and they're just distracted. Either in the morning time, we've seen it in our morning in traffic enforcement or management, you see parents, more specifically mothers, preparing kids for school in the morning. And within their vehicles, we have seen, yes, men shaving.
You would
while
shave?
driving, while driving. Yes.
While driving?
While driving. We have seen,
wow.
We have encountered all of those issues on a daily basis, especially when you have that morning rush where the back to school commute.
Right,
yes,
which is going to begin again very soon.
Very soon, and we are preparing for those issues that we will encounter once the schools reopen.
When you say though driving without having been in an accident before, that's sort of the go-to, driving without due care and attention. But to me that seems again so very broad, because it would seem that that is the go-to whenever a driver is stopped or whenever there is an issue.
Well, Jerome, just to weigh in on that, due care and attention, also driving without reasonable consideration for other road users, both of which comes under the very same sections.
Okay.
Yes, you may look at it as being broad-based. Notwithstanding, there are many sections of the Road Traffic Act, it's a little over 100 in the Act, but the regulations speaks to very specific offenses. Which, as Chief Superintendent Stubbs has indicated, the prevalence of individuals who are inattentive while in control of the vehicles, adorning makeup, even getting dressed.
I don't know how people manage to do
It
these things in a
happens.
car.
No, those things happen. We live in a very real society.
But that's very irresponsible. How could
Yeah,
you?
so-
I can't get over past the people shave in the
fine.
car.
So you go back to the question that you posed to Controller Smith with respect to, is there sufficient taking place in terms of prior to the acquisition of a driver's license? We get these things and we just throw everything out. There's an inherent responsibility for all of us to pay attention to that very simple thing, the rules of the road. 15 years ago, the ability to acquire the knowledge that is available today was not there. If you wanted to know what the law spoke to, you had to go to a government publication and purchase a copy of it. Today, you pick up your cell phone and you say, Google, take me to the Bahamas laws, take me to the Road Traffic Act. It takes you directly there and it spells out the do's and the don'ts.
Mr. Smith, as a part of, I mean, it's been a while since I got my license. You had to go to government publication back in those days when I was getting a license. But are new drivers being sufficiently taught or acclimated on the rules and the regulations and the laws and the do's and the don'ts when they come in, or is it simply, these are the sort of questions things you need to know? Are people being sufficiently taught about what they should and should not do on the roads?
So we have a document that is online that anyone can get to study, right?
Mr. Smith, most people ain't going online.
I know.
I know document. Your goal is to get your license, and if you're an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, or whatever, trying to get your license, you have one goal in mind, and that is to get through that exam, to get your license, to get on the road. And at that age, you aren't interested in reading up too much.
And so many of them, after the first iteration, fail the test.
There's a high rate of
Because
failure.
there's, and especially among males and females, it's because people don't realize that information is important. And so you say to them, go to such and such a website, we say roadtraffic.gov.bs, and download the information that is necessary for you to be able to pass the exam. And so you find around the second, third time they do better.
Wow. And I can't definitely speak to this. Do you think, though, that people have an issue probably comprehending or understanding as well? Or is it plain enough and simple enough for people to understand what they're reading?
I believe it's plain enough, but there are also some of the schools that are in operation do offer classes for persons, who...
In driver's ed.
Yeah, in driver's ed.
It's not mandatory, though, eh?
No, it's not.
Not like in
yet.
the U.S. where you have, in the United States, it's almost like a mandatory system that you go through. Do you think that's something we should look into?
Yeah,
Making
we are
it
looking into
mandatory in
it.
school.
We're looking into it, but not every state in the U.S. it's mandatory. Only in some states. And we are looking into it. We are looking at legislation that will speak directly to that issue of driving, whether or not it's pre or post. Yeah.
Interesting. When it comes to accidents and the mishaps and the things that traffic police are out there investigating, you would have mentioned the use of cell phones, I think, is probably on the higher end, I would almost say highest end. But what are some of the things that leading causes of accidents that you see on a daily basis?
I think what we can say some of the leading cause is driver's error. Drivers take chances. Let's say a rear-end vehicle. Drivers are now on a main corridor. He's approaching now a side street, and the vehicle that's now in a side street, just in a rush, decide to exit onto the side street. An accident occur. It might be a rear-end collision, but not all rear-end collision means that the person that struck you from behind is at fault. We see it every day. There are sometimes we see where cannot comprehend the street signs. You know, we see it more often now in Providence. We did some education on the merge lanes. We see that it's now an issue where we see a lot of accidents happening where vehicles are now merging onto lanes. Then we see
When you say merging,
the merge lanes. When you are driving on the merge lanes, the lane that has the arrow, you must give way to the vehicle either to your left or to your right. You must adhere, you must give way. Roundabouts.
well,
That is an issue where we see.
we need to have a whole show on roundabouts.
Yes.
Because I honest, on a daily basis, almost in fear when I'm on a roundabout. Because you never know what is going to happen. People are crisscrossing, they don't seem to understand. And, you know, there's been a proliferation of roundabouts in the past few years with the road improvement. But we don't seem to have a clue as to how to use roundabouts. And I'm sure you all must be inundated with accidents.
Just to chime in on that, Joe, the construction of some of our roundabouts lends to the concerns.
Yes, that I agree with.
You travel along the Cable Beach thoroughfare. You, in some areas, you move from a dual carriage roundabout configuration to a single lane roundabout configuration. So, as you had indicated, full show to discuss that, because if you are in the left lane of any roundabout, if you follow this concept for the left lane of a dual space roundabout,
That's 2 lanes.
right, within the roundabout, if you are taking that first lane to the left or first turn off to the
To
left,
exit,
you must be in the left lane.
Yes, I
Or-
call it the outside lane.
Right. Or the second. But if you're proceeding to go back in the direction from which you are traveling, or to the very right of you, you'll start with the inner lane. So if you take the concept, if you have to pass the second one, you're in the inner lane. If you have to exit on the first left or continue ahead, you're on the outer lane. And so that's pretty much the concept of the usage of the roundabout. And further to that, just to expand on what Chief Superintendent Stubbs has mentioned with respect to vehicles coming out, entering, and rear-ending. You follow the theory also in terms of parking. The law says no parking within 15 feet of a curve or corner. The roadway, take for example, use one that we know about. Let's use Tonic Williams Darling Highway. You just left the original party. You're coming up, roadway is 30 miles per hour along that
It's a
path.
side road.
That side road that's coming out there, you can see the vehicle coming up, but you figure you're going to beat it. That vehicle slams into the rear view. Or, alternatively, you pull out, but you have traveled almost to the entrance to go into Blue Hill Heights, and then rear-ended. That distance of travel also makes a difference in allowing us to determine who is found to be at fault for that particular accident. It's a full discussion on it, and then to go back to this issue that you brought on with Mr. Smith to find out whether or not there is sufficient material out there, even in the educational arena. Khan Academy, YouTube, whatever have you. And listen, let's use an example. Colton Harris Moore flew to the Bahamas on a joystick. He sat down in the living room, learned how to fly a plane.
It's the Barefoot Bandit.
The Barefoot Bandit.
Yeah.
He flew 3 aircrafts without any consultation from any practitioner within that field. So the youngsters or any individuals now today have the ability, be it from an actual vehicle or from toys, to be able to perform these acts. The generation that's just behind us grew up off the joystick. So there's no short or lacking of knowledge or ability to gather the information. Road traffic does its best, but road traffic has to conform to reality now. They can't be handing out a bunch of books, so go learn from the books, because everything right now is technology.
But
It's
if
behaviors.
only we would use social media for good. If only
Excellent.
we would use our powers for good.
Excellent.
Gentlemen, we are at the point of our first break. We are talking about really road safety, and we have a lot to cover. Stay with us. We're into our first break. We are back right after this. We are in our second season of On the Record, and we thank you, our viewing audience, for allowing us into your homes every Thursday at 8 p.m. We value your opinion, and we want you to be a part of our discussions. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and comment on our exciting topics. Remember, it's all on the record.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
We are back with more On the Record tonight. Assistant Commissioner Ken Strachan of the Royal Bahamas Police Force Traffic, Chief Superintendent Craig Stubbs of the Police Force as well, Traffic Division, and Ross Smith, Controller of Road Traffic. Tonight, our discussion has to do with road safety. Don't lose your life to gain a minute. How many of the horrific accidents, particularly the traffic fatalities that we have, are related to speed and the excessive amount of speed? You know, I think the new roads that we have are a blessing to us in many ways, in that they help us to move around and access points of the island a lot faster. I can tell you that I have seen, and I you guys know this, experience, you know, an easier flow of traffic. But they have also, in my opinion, opened up what appears to be some highways. And we seem to be taking advantage of them for the wrong reason. But back to my original question, and you know, how many of these fatalities that we are seeing, and even the very serious accidents which result in very serious injury, can you estimate are the result of excessive speed?
When you look at the amount of fatalities we've recorded just in New Providence, some 35 here alone in New Providence.
It's just August.
This is August. Speed is a major factor in the causation of these fatalities. In those corridors where we see where there's less vehicular traffic, the wee hours of the morning, persons tend to use those corridors to exceed the recommended speed limit. When those vehicles, we see now the Japanese vehicles, from my personal view, they're not built for speed. And when you find they would have either made collision with a tree, a wall, and the extent of the damages that we view on scene, speed is definitely a factor when you look
They
at
aren't
it.
built for speed, or they aren't built for the impact.
In all honesty, I refer to them as golf carts. They are not built. I don't think they are built for the road and this atmosphere that we
Well, a lot of these are second-hand cars that have been used, that have been discarded by other countries, and we are taking them in abundance.
Yes, that is facts, but it is an issue. It is a concern for us because our more recent fatalities, we are seeing the extent of the damages done to those vehicles that cause us concern. If certain measures were in place, or if this car had the added feature, the person might have received the injuries, but they would not have died on scene as we would have
That would have
seen.
been horrific.
And then even to add to that, Joe, these vehicles that Chief Superintendent Stubbs is speaking about, you're finding that there's no airbags, even if, as one of the features that he's speaking to, in one incident very recently, we have the dislodgement of the engine. From the
Yeah, that's
vehicle.
just what I was thinking of when he was saying that.
No different from something that I saw many years ago with an Oldsmobile, Delta 88 Oldsmobile. Lady crashed on Prospect Ridge, and that engine landed about 100 feet from the vehicle. And so, again, they're telltales. Speed is a factor. And I tell you, you're sitting in the vehicle, you're not aware in many occasions that your speed is what it is. And a lot of us...
Because you're looking at a speedometer that's not looking at miles per hour, eh?
You're just
still looking at kilometers.
That's correct. So you're off the impression that I'm with it, but I'm not speeding. You're not feeling it. Speed is relative to how you're traveling in some cases, or where you sit. But I'm not speeding. The sign is there. There are signs on the streets. Speed is X, Y, Z, but...
What is it now, and this is something, Mr. Smith, I want to put to you. First of all, in my estimation, we don't appear to have enough speeding signs to say speed limit signs, to say this should be the prescribed speed limit in this area. I still forget, it's been many years, I still forget what the speed limit is in some areas, but if I can, just defer to the U.S. for a moment. When you're on a highway, it tells you 55, 65, etc. So you're able to see the signs as you move along. Do we have enough street signs? And secondly, given the proliferation of the types of cars with the speedometers now at, not just using miles per hour, is it time now for our signs to have two sets of indicators so that we, as drivers, understand? I mean, if your speedometer is in kilometers, I can't convert that while I drive it. I mean, I could barely convert that when I was in school. So, is it time now for our signs to have both?
It's not difficult to convert it, but
I know maths too. I can tell you that. It's the reason I got into journalism. But anyway, to your point.
One of the things, I do believe that we need more signs to ensure that people understand how much or how fast they're going and whether or not they are within the limit. When they study for the exam, there's information as to what is the speed limit within the city limit, within certain areas of the New Providence. What about the highways and stuff like that? So it's there for them. But when they finish, they forget that they only studied for the exam, and so they forget
Smith,
it all.
I got my license, I think it must have been in 1990. I can't remember most of what would have been on that. But if I see a sign, I will know that I remember the city limit and being outside. But, after a year, 2 years, you can't necessarily recall that information.
Yeah, we have to work with the agency who is responsible to ensure that they have those things in place.
Which agency is responsible? That's not road traffic?
We are responsible, in a sense. We are responsible for reporting that information. But there's an agency that's responsible for ensuring that those are made up and those signs are erected. Ministry of Works.
That's Ministry of Works. Okay, so Ministry of Works, if you're listening, we need more signs.
Okay. And piggyback on Mr. Smith and to your question, the law states where there's no speed sign posted, the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. We know basically three outstanding speed limit zones, school zones, which is 5 miles per hour, residential areas is 20 miles per hour, and then only highways we have side to say, Carmichael is a 45-mile zone.
Carmichael is a highway?
Carmichael is considered a highway by law.
Interesting.
By law.
Okay. So
but where there's no speed signs erected, the speed limit is 30 miles per hour.
But just to add
to that, plenty money.
We're speaking about speed. There's nowhere in the country that the speed exceeds 45 miles per hour. So the point is mute. There's nowhere. And so as Chief Super Stubbs spoke about speed being a factor in the occurrence of these incidents that we're seeing out there, we know fully by i.e. the damages or the injuries caused that the speed at that particular time was beyond 45 miles per hour. I have to
ask you this though. If I'm traveling on JFK on the way to the airport, right, or is it practical for me to say the speed limit is 40 or 35? I mean, is it time for us to look at maybe extending that by another 10 miles per hour or something, so it's at least at 50? I mean, is that really practical to say you should be making 35 on that road?
Okay, and
Because I don't make 35.
JFK
I could be honest.
it is a 45 miles per hour zone.
Okay.
We have during the course of the year, we have set up speed checks within that zone.
I see.
And we have extended some courtesy to be to like 10 miles beyond the 45 miles per hour. Persons we found going in excess of the 55 miles per hour, we have cited them for driving in excess of the speed limit.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's some grace.
Okay. Now, I wanted to talk too about some of the other factors that are contributing to the accidents. When I was a traffic student seeking to get my license, there was no consideration for cell phones and what that meant. But we have evolved and changed so much. Is cell phone use or do you speak to the use of cell phones now for your individuals who are going for a license? Is there anything in there that speaks to, what you should not be doing on your phone while you're driving?
Not specifically. That's not in law as yet. We are looking at it to put it into law. As a matter of fact, I had to come up with certain issues that are of extreme importance that we need to put into law without trying to look at the entire law at the same time. And so we have mentioned that cell phones is one of those that we will be looking at seriously.
And when you say will be, I mean, to me, we are at a critical state. Any timeline as to when this will happen, daily, I watch people on phone, and they're doing all manner of things. They are on social media, they're typing, they're taking pictures, they're doing video, all manner of things on the phone. It seems that we are almost at a crisis stage.
We are hoping to have this, a few regulations, and some of it is going to be legislation by early next year.
From an authority perspective, there are no laws on the book, to deal with individuals who are on their phones and driving.
Yes,
there are.
Yes.
There is,
Again, we go back to section 46 of the Road Traffic Act. Driving without either due care and attention.
Okay, so that does come under due care and attention.
Reasonable reasonable consideration for the road users.
So you can't be.
So
That's not reasonable.
it's not reasonable, and so it's encapsulated within.
So
that
the police
particular
have a
section.
discretion.
We have been reporting persons when we find that they are inattentiveness because of the cell phone or some other devices.
Do you think that we are now at the point of that we need a real educational campaign? Because I've seen a couple things and I've heard a couple things, but when you watch, the campaigns in other countries where they show you the end result, and where police are very, very diligent. I know for me, the minute, there's so many other things to do with traffic. The minute you land in Miami and pick up your car from Dollar, we fall into a whole different mode. All of a sudden, the traffic laws that we paid no attention to here or seeming, we could get by, all of a sudden, we fall into line when we're in another country. But do you think it's now, or are we at the point where we need a serious education campaign to get people to understand the real dangers of using a cell phone and driving?
Jerome, I agree with you that we do. Social media, as we started, does a very good job in sensationalizing and sensitizing, but for the wrong reason.
Oh, yeah.
For the wrong reason in a number of cases. We have been doing it over the years. We intend to continue to do it, and we solicit you through your program and the other media houses out there to assist us within these campaigns. Our presence here today, joined by the controller of road traffic, indicates to you clearly that we're not speaking a different language. Yes, we recognize that we need to do more. You started out in a side discussion speaking about some of our public service drivers and the behaviors and so forth. But I will say this much to you. Several years ago, what had happened was the introduction of what we refer to is a fixed penalty, a ticket that is issued to the offender having committed an offense. Once that offender avails his or herself to the court and makes payment for the offense committed, the position is such that that does not appear on a traffic record. I can show you, Jerome, many offenders out there who has traffic citations of more than 80 to 100 offenses having been committed. And so the conversation...
And they still have a license?
The conversation now is with us in the road traffic controller. And because...
80?
Yes.
In a lifetime?
Yeah, so the police department, through its obligations, will petition and has been petitioning the controller's office to give that person a vacation.
Is it time now for us, I go to the U.S. again, is it time now for us to have a point system?
Yes.
Where, you know, as in the U.S. and in other countries, each infraction is a kind of mark against your license, which eventually could affect whether you can keep that license, and also even the cost of your insurance.
That's one of the points we also are putting forth to begin and have it completed, like I say, by early next year. The point system has to go in place, because speaking with the police and speaking with other individuals who see things on the street, it is time that we deal with that.
Gentlemen, we have to take a break. We have quite a few topics to discuss, but I want to say here now that I'm going to address the public service drivers. I'm going to address the bus drivers. I may need you gentlemen to escort me around for a couple of days after the show, after I'm about to say what I'm going to say when it comes to bus drivers. I live with that madness every day in my car. It is a daily risk to motorists, to the people who use those buses, and even to pedestrians, the behavior of some of our public service drivers, our bus drivers. And I don't want taxi drivers to think that they're exempt either, because I watch them as well. We're halfway through our discussion. Assistant Commissioner Ken Strawn, Chief Superintendent Craig Stubbs, and Ross Smith, Road Traffic Controller, are my guests. We're talking everything street safety and road traffic. Stay with us. We're back right after this.
Get faster internet speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Rev, join the revolution.
The bloodstains in the street are a mark of a holiday tragedy. On a day when workers across the country celebrate their achievements, 4 women saw their lives snuffed away, while dozens of others, including a child, required medical attention. The scene unfolded during the heights of the annual Labor Day parade near to the intersection of East and Shirley Streets. Witnesses say a truck, driven by a man, lost control and collided into a crowd of onlookers. Participants, police, and spectators rushed to assist, creating a hectic scene in the midst of the parade's route. Our News understands that several members of the Bahamas Financial Services Union were involved in the tragic accident.
Welcome back to More on the Record. Earlier this year, we experienced real horror on what started out to be a fun Labor Day parade. 4 people eventually died from this accident, with 29 injured. We continue to experience issues on our streets with traffic fatality. We are exploring this whole issue of road safety tonight and all that it brings. Gentlemen, I just want to touch on that tragedy very quickly and to get some idea of where we are in the investigation into that. That certainly was the largest and I think most devastating event that we would have had in terms of road traffic or in terms of an accident on our streets. But where are we with that investigation, and any word on what is still pending?
Well, Jerome, with respect to that particular matter, the police have concluded the investigations into that matter, and a response on that is pending. We're in consultation with our Director of Public Prosecutions, and so in short order, a final response, well, not a final, a response would be given to where the direction we are going in.
So really it is out of your hands at this point.
That is
and
correct.
It is up to prosecutions, to the Director of Public Prosecutions to determine what happens next.
That is correct.
What have we done or has been done really to try and avoid something like that happening in the future? I mean, parades and celebrations on the street are commonplace, right. Particularly in our culture. I mean, we've always been a culture of people that have celebrated on the streets, on foot, but also intertwined with vehicles. I say proudly I'm a carnival participant. And we are hours on the road, in and around big trucks and moving vehicles. There's a lot of reveling going on. I don't run from it. There's a lot of drinking, a lot of partying going on around vehicles in the road. And that happens, you know, all the time with these kinds of parades, etc. So, you know, what is being done? Are there any safeguards in place or anything to deal to additional monitoring or anything to try and safeguard against something like this happening again?
What I will say to you with respect to that, Jerome, every parade that we manage out there, the officers, particularly from the traffic division, are speaking to the drivers of those vehicles and the participants they are on. Constantly, we are saying to those persons, you have to sit properly or find yourself properly within the vehicle. Sitting on the side of a bed of a trailer with your feet hanging over, you can be sucked off of that vehicle and entangled in those tires. We have seen these types of accidents over the years. So many times you're speaking to the individuals and cautioning them. And in some cases, we have pulled trucks off of parade because persons would not behave. That is a partnership. We have to work together.
So there's a sense of personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility.
Yes. And so what we are also undertaking now is, prior to this event, we'll meet with all of the stakeholders and we'll make a determination what vehicles will now go on these parades. We will also be asking now to look at using maybe the golf carts, depending on where the parade route is going. Use the golf carts, which would be less of an issue for those spectators or participants of these parades.
But we understand before you go there, Jerome, that yes, a lot of the parades involves music. So there's the conveyance of the music. And so you would find in a number of cases, the truck that is conveying the music will not be allowed to have any number of persons hanging off of those vehicles and so forth. So from time to time along any route, and just so that it is made clear, every parade that is expected to take place must first seek the promoters of the parade must first seek the permission of the Commissioner of Police before that parade takes place. And we govern the direction of the parade. And
I wanted to use this almost to segue into another issue, and you know, not to cast any aspersions, but these events bring about quite a bit of drinking. Yes. Whether it's the people who are involved in the parade, whether it's the drivers, etc. And this is going to lead to a larger question, but do the police monitor that as well? I mean, if you sort of see that activity, I mean, I've been on many parades, and the drivers drink.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, we do, and there have been cases where we would have, based on the driver actions and our communication with him, we have either one, we've utilized another participant of that parade to drive the truck off the parade, and we have and so. Once the police who are policing these events, we take note of these issues, we act. Because at the end of the day, it would be irresponsible for us to allow a driver who we believe is driving under the influence to continue to drive pending, or because depending on the event also. We have to say we move him from that parade, move that vehicle from the parade, or in some cases where we find the spectators or the participants are very unruly, sometimes we cease the parade in total. We cancel it.
Mr. Smith, in your move now to bring additional or to update the legislation or bring any regulations, are any of the regulations speaking to drinking and driving?
It's on the books.
It is on the book? Well, okay, good. I'm glad you said that. And that brings me to another discussion. Because we live in a culture, whether we want to admit it or not, where the proliferation of drinking and driving is very high. People drink, they drink excessively, they drink in front of the police. I see them driving around. It is a part of who we are. And I'm not going to sit here and sit on a high horse and say, I have not done it. You drink and you figure, I can make it home, and you attempt to do it. And a lot of accidents, I would hasten to say, are the result of drinking and driving. But there seems to be nothing that is done. First of all, what happens? If you arrive on the scene, is a driver tested? Is there a breathalyzer? Do they go to the hospital to get the alcohol level tested in their blood? What happens when you arrive at a scene and you suspect that something has happened as a result of someone being under the influence? What's the steps? What are the steps taken?
Jerome, I'm glad you brought that point
up.
Oh,
you're not having an additional pass without bringing that up.
You brought that point up. And it has been a vexing issue for us for a long time. The driver is taken in once you suspect he or she to be under the influence of drink or drugs.
Or drugs, yeah, I meant to add that, sorry.
You proceed then to a medical facility. For us, it's the Princess Margaret Hospital. Person has to go through the process of being registered and wait to be attended to by the physician to get the requisite protocols.
At the hospital?
At the hospital.
Where they try to see 10,000 people already, and they don't overcrowded. And
once that is done and you're able to secure blood, that is then taken to our laboratory for testing, where there you'll find that the alcohol level supersedes that of the required level of
and what's the what is the legal limit in the Bahamas?
The percentage is not specified. That's something we've been trying to.
There is no percentage?
Right now, once medically is determined that you are incapable of performing or having proper control of that vehicle, and that comes from the medical side of it.
So the doctor or whomever determines whether you can...
The results of the blood alcohol level having...
So there's no standard?
There is a standard. Oh. Once that is tested within the laboratories and shows that your actual percentage is greater than a legal limit for you to have proper control, be it drug or alcohol.
You just said legal limit, though. If there is no prescribed limit.
There is, Jerome, there is, and I apologize for that. To give you the percentage right now, that kind of slips off from me.
Okay, all right. So there is a percentage.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
And so once it's determined that it is greater than that of what you should be at, the charges are preferred against you. And I'll say to you, you go before the court with that in mind. The penalty for that is up to $5,000 for driving under the influence of drink or drugs. It used to be, Jerome, that to go through a traffic light was $500 to $1,000. It's now $100. It used to be for dangerous driving as much as $5,000. It's now $500.
So you could, in essence, drink, be drunk, smash into somebody, kill them, or destroy your car, somebody else's car, and the fine is $500?
Yeah. But
and then my other question is, are officers, that seems very tedious. I mean, in other countries, there's a breathalyzer that you use right on the scene. I mean, it's 2018. What's stopping us from using, modern equipment to test people on the scene? Because you're talking about now an officer has to accompany someone to the hospital. Right. Heaven forbid if it's a busy night in A&E, so you have to sit there now while they deal with real emergencies. And then, at this time, the alcohol doesn't start to process through the system. So there are all these, I would say, barriers that may, in the course of human existence, deter an officer from wanting to actually go through that. Because y'all got to sit with me, right? If you all take me there, you have to sit with me and wait.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so, what are we doing now to modernize this process? Or is anything being done?
Certainly, We're just about there because we have acquired the requisite equipment, and it's just through
These are breathalyzers?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've had it for some time, and so the requisite legal procedures to cause us to be able to move in those directions. And so that's a part of what Mr. Smith is speaking about, for taking a second look at where we need to go to bring order to this
I
particular
don't understand how the fines were reduced. What was the rationale and reasoning behind, you're laughing, what the rationale and reasoning behind that? And are we looking at increasing them or taking them back? Because, you know, let me tell you how I see it. People will break the law because they can, one, get away with it, or they are in a position to address the fine or address whatever the punishment is. If the punishment is not severe, people are going to continue to do it.
Let me address and clear up some of what Mr. Robert said earlier. Now, the percentage for the alcohol level on books is 0.008. Yes, that is the limit, and once you exceed
So
that,
what does that translate into, like a glass?
well,
Depending on who you are.
you and I can be different. I may drink one Bud Light and be inebriated. You could drink 10 and you'll be as sober as, and I may be drunk. So it all depends on
But
the individual.
it is up to the blood level,
Yes.
eh?
Once
Yeah.
we would have suspect an individual of driving under the influence, once we get to the hospital, there's priority given to the officer and then that individual to retrieve
Okay.
blood.
So you're not just sitting there?
No, we're not sitting there.
Okay.
We must say thank you to the medical staff. there
Okay, well,
who
that
assist.
brings some clarity to that.
Yes. The traffic signal, running the traffic light.
Yeah, but let's talk about the reduction in the fines first before you. How
I'm
did
going
we
to get to that.
place?
The fine for the traffic light is not $100. It's a $250 fine. Okay. But there are cases on the law books where we see of a person of being reported multiple times for running the traffic light, we increase the fine, or we send a person before the court where he can be fined to up to $500 or to $1,000 of the driver's license. Yes, driver's license suspended for a period of 1 year.
Nah, drinking and driving, or did I go 500?
The drinking and driving, the fines will vary depending on the evidence that will be produced before the
Mr.
court.
Smith, let me say this to you as we prepare to go into the break. We seriously need to look at addressing that. And we see, you need only drive around on a Monday morning sometimes to see what has been, the havoc that has been wreaked on our streets over the weekends, particularly holiday weekends. People are knocking down street signs, street lights, they're running into barriers, into people's walls, into homes. And, you know, I often say this is why we can't have nice things. You know, anytime you put up the lovely barriers we put up all but torn down, you know, they did with the road improvement.
Yes.
And, you know, and you can't tell me it's just people just driving and all of a sudden you just drive into a wall. Something would have precipitated that. So, sir, I hope that, you know, as you were reviewing these laws and the fines, we look at increasing the fines going forward, particularly for instances like this.
Sure.
Definitely. Gentlemen, our topic tonight is road safety. Don't lose your life to gain a minute. We're going to continue our discussion right after this break.
Every time I'm in the Bahamas, I use Rev Go Play.
Got that food. It's packing. Here he comes.
Yo.
Wait, Omar coming?
Boy, this Rev Go Play, solid.
Rev, you and us together.
We will find you. So please use the dignity, the human dignity that you have, and come into us and speak with us so that we can bring some resolution to this matter.
Welcome back. We are in the final segment of the show. We've been discussing road traffic safety. Our theme tonight, don't lose your life to gain a minute. I promised that we were going to address it, but I do want to talk now about the public service drivers. I want to speak specifically to buses and bus drivers. On a daily basis, I, like so many other motorists, have to suffer through the bad behavior, the dangerous driving, the refusal to adhere to the laws that are perpetrated upon us by public service drivers, by bus drivers. It is a daily menace, and depending on where you are, it seems that it is worse. Some parts of the inner city, I often look around and say, where are the police? What is happening? And obviously you can't be everywhere all the time, but I've been in this business for 25 years, and from my very first, as a very young reporter, I know about covering issues with buses and bus drivers. And this, to me, is the epitome of insanity. We seem to be doing the same thing over and over and somehow expecting a different result. I've not seen it improve. Maybe it has. Maybe you can tell me something different. But that is a menace that has been wreaked upon the Bahamian people for decades. What is being done to address the continued issues with some bus drivers out there?
One of the things we're doing is working together with the police to ensure that we get or bring some sanity. And we have seen some improvement.
You used the word sanity.
Yeah, we've seen some improvement. And yeah, we have. It's not.
I must be in the wrong area.
Yeah. But and working with the police, working with the general public as well, people report. The general public needs to know that they can report any information. I get that all the time. We then, once we have sat with them, they have a right to be heard, like anybody else. And so we then make a decision on it. We send that decision on to the police, so that they would know exactly what the decision is. It might be the suspension of a badge for a certain length of time, or it could be revoking that badge. Just recently, we suspended a badge for 9 months from a bus driver. I think another one we suspended for 6. That was a taxi driver, and one for 9, right? And I have about 3 or 4 cases that I'm about to deal with right now. That is the final.
When I report, do I need to have some kind of documentation, or
yes.
do I need to have some kind of documentation?
Just give us written information sometime.
Written information, I could take a picture, or take a video, or use your social media for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, all that helps us to make the decision.
What continues to be, though, the most vexing issue with public service? I mean, I have my own issues, but from your perspective, what are some of the major infractions that you all are dealing with consistently with bus drivers?
Mr. Stamps. Running traffic lights, disobeying the traffic signals, failing to stop, causing obstruction, reckless and dangerous driving. Yes. And the bus stops, it is an issue, but where bus stops are erected or signs are posted, and they continue to embark or disengage passengers, we tend to enforce the aspects of the laws also.
I tend to believe, too, that the passengers have some culpability in this madness. Because you cannot tell me that you're going to sit on a bus, your house is right there, or your stop is right there, somebody gets off here, and as soon as that bus pulls off, you call a bus stop, and the bus has to stop again.
But the driver still has the responsibility. He is in charge of that vehicle.
So really, what should, I mean, it's hard to many times identify bus stops, and I see people standing up all over the place, wherever they walk out and so desire to wave down a bus.
It's a bus stop.
And it's because the bus drivers and the culture and the bus industry is for persons to do that. That's the culture. And so wherever they see a bus, it doesn't matter where the bus stop is. It could be next to me and you. And they still do it.
3 people feet apart, waiting on the same bus.
Like Mr. Stubbs says, the onus is on the bus driver to adhere to the law. they can go to the bus stop, sit there for a few minutes and pick up passengers, right? Rather than allowing them, the passengers shouldn't be dictating as to what the laws are. Their laws, their own laws. They should be adhering to the laws.
But the problem becomes, sir, is, I don't catch a bus, so I don't know, but I could walk out now and not be aware of where a bus stop is because there is no signage. You just don't know.
Let's take this same road.
The Marathon Road?
Not Marathon.
Prince Charles. Well, Prince Charles, I think, has designated bus stops. I'm talking about there are lots of other streets all over the place. And
I want to make this point.
Okay,
even where there are designated bus stops, these bus drivers just stop.
Well, I agree with that. No, I'm not talking about that.
They need to adhere.
Right.
They need to adhere. There's safety. There's a huge safety involved with that. This whole issue of persons not stopping where they are supposed to stop. Right?
Agreed. But are we going to address, though, the lack of proper bus stops and bus signage? Because, in a civilized country, you get a map with a bus route, and it tells you where the bus stops are. There's a schedule that tells me I can go to 3:05, 3:30, 3:45, but all I know in the bomb is a bus stop start at 7 and end at 7 or whatever the time is, and I can walk out and catch a bus.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point are we going to move ourselves into a civilized society? And while I sit here and put an onus on the bus drivers, if we don't have a proper system in place, they only can take but so much of the responsibility. When are we going to get a serious bus system in place that a tourist or anyone can walk, get a schedule, or heaven forbid, go online and see one, and be able to say, okay, these are the routes, these are the stops, this is what happens. I mean, even the poor tourists, I watch them, they just stand there aimlessly looking and waiting sometimes because, again, we don't have a proper system. Is there any move to try and bring some kind of sense and sanity to this bus system?
There is. We have been working on this now, I think, since I came into road traffic, and looking at a unified bus system for the country. In the first instance, looking at New Providence. We are at a point where that is now before Cabinet. Okay? So Cabinet now has to make the decision as to where we move. That's the only thing. We have a fragmented bus system where individuals own the buses and
they have different franchises.
And
yes,
so that's
I
issue.
can say this and I can move on very quickly. In 1993, I think the Minister of Transport, would have been the late Arlington Butler. I'm not quite sure who he was, but I remember sitting down in an interview as a young reporter in 1993 and hearing about a unified bus system. That was 1993. It's 2018. The other thing, too, I want to say, and this is what bothers me, bus drivers are letting people out into oncoming traffic. And I suspect that any day somebody's going to get killed by Dunkin' Donuts, that's Marlborough Street.
Yes.
Coming down Marlborough Street, coming down onto Bay Street. Cumberland Street.
Right.
I watch passengers disembark into oncoming traffic almost on a daily basis. Daily. And it scares the life out of me. Women, children, tourists. And I'm thinking to myself, how can you be so irresponsible as a bus driver that you are going to allow passengers onto a street into oncoming traffic? And that's just one example. There are many of them. And I'm surprised that we have not been called to clean up the carnage, because bus drivers continue to, and I watch it, they let people off into traffic. And heaven forbid you in your car, and if you aren't watching them, you will have a traffic fatality on your head. But anyway, so be it. A question that I want to bring in terms of what happens, particularly in an accident. A great complaint is a lot of times that there is an accident, something happens, and you will call in your accident, and a police car will pass, or police, and they'll tell you, no, you have to wait on traffic police. Why is that? Why can't any officer investigate or deal with an accident?
Jerome, that is a very, very bad thing for our officers to do. Officer in uniform, coming upon an accident, has a duty and a responsibility to stop and conduct an investigation unless he or she is engaged in a very serious emergency at that time, or to ensure that care is brought to those persons affected by the accident. We encourage the members of the public, where you find incidents of like that taking place, to record. There are numbers on all of our police vehicles. There's a reason for that. So never mind that you may not have seen the officer's number.
Right
Either
down
the
the
license
vehicle
plate number or the number that is boldly placed
on the car.
Send that picture in, send that report in, and I assure you that the officers will be dealt with. We have a complaints and disciplinary unit within our organization.
Every officer is mandated to deal.
An officer in uniform is mandated to deal with any offense he or she finds
And
on
that's
the streets.
interesting you said that because any officer will stop you for an infraction.
Yes.
I can tell you, I can be honest. The other night I went through a red light. It was late, and the officers pulled me over. And he said, "So you realize you're running around?" I said, "Yes, sir, it's late, and this was dangerous. I wasn't I'd be stopping here on the light." And he said, "Okay." He let me off in the morning, which I appreciate. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. But my point to him was, I was not going to stop at that red light at that hour of the night because I was in fear of what could happen. And so if an officer, any officer can, and I would say it's true, any officer can stop you for an infraction. Any officer should be able to deal correct with an accident or a mishap of some sort. That is correct.
That's correct.
All right. Gentlemen, we could talk forever on this subject, but I do want to say thank you very much for coming on and addressing this issue with us tonight. It's something that is very, very important, because we must all share the streets, whether you are on a bus, whether you're a pedestrian, you're in a taxi cab, or you're driving. We must all use the streets. It's very, very important. So I thank you. We appreciate the work that you do. I know you all catch a lot of heat out there from the public, but I want to encourage you to continue to do the work that you do. Mr. Smith, I know you have a lot of work in road traffic to do. It's always a very difficult thing. And I'm looking forward, though, to these new rules and regulations and the legislation and the enactment of the legislation, because having the laws is one thing, but enacting them is something else. And like I always say, in this country, we're great at making laws. It's the enforcement where we fall down. So I thank you for coming on tonight, and thank you for sharing with us. We appreciate it. Hopefully at some point we'll be able to come back and talk about all the great things that have happened.
Exactly.
We're looking forward to that. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. We hope that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Anthony Ferguson, who has agreed for his officers to come on, Assistant Commissioner Ken Strawn, Chief Superintendent Craig Stubbs, Ross Smith, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, our audience, for watching each night, each week for On the Record. Folks, it has certainly been my pleasure. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next time.